All right. Greetings, Internet. Welcome back for another podcast about the Edge wallet.
Hey guys, it's RJ, the QA support manager, doing all the support and QA. Joining me is William, our chief architect.
I do programming stuff. That makes it sound so unenthusiastic. Like, I do programming. No, actually, it's really exciting. I really am happy with my job here.
All right, let's get down to it. So, first order of business, Wells Fargo. So how many of you guys use Wells Fargo?
Well, you do.
I do. I had a bad experience with them yesterday.
Well, you got to tell the story.
Okay. So.
Well, first of all, we should back up.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know, Wells Fargo's nationwide, everything is shut down the bank.
Yeah.
So if you have money in Wells Fargo, you basically don't have money.
Right. So the ATMs, they're closed. If you try to pay something with your debit or credit card with Wells Fargo, it'll get declined or not go through since yesterday, and it's still ongoing today. And they actually had a day also last week, so this is their third day this month. Anyhow, I had to withdraw some cash yesterday, went to the bank. I was lucky enough to go in there, get some cash out. There's a $1,000 limit. And some of the other people that were in there were originally going to withdraw like, $50, $100. And when they were told that debit and credit cards weren't working, they changed it to $1,000, the maximum amount
They
to
were
withdraw.
panicking.
Yeah, they were panicking inside the bank. And then when I finally got my cash, I was lucky enough to get my cash, walked out, they closed the door, and there were still some customers outside, and they ran out of cash at my Wells Fargo branch.
Wow.
So no one could step inside Wells Fargo to withdraw money. They couldn't use the ATMs to withdraw money, and they couldn't use their ATM or debit cards, credit cards, to make transactions.
Wow.
So now this is day two, or counting last week, day 3.
So, I mean, this is kind of reminiscent of what happened in Cyprus a couple of years ago. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, I remember that, like around
The
Greece.
bank shut down. All the banks shut down for like a month because they ran out of money. Like the banks were insolvent.
Right.
And I think the solution was that when they reopened, everybody had like 30% less in their bank account.
Yep,
So
they did a little nice haircut.
yeah, if you had $1,000 in the bank, when you came back, your account had $700 or whatever it would be in euros or whatever they were using over there.
Right. And when they finally also reopened up, I think that's when they set the limits like 300 euros a day maximum.
Yeah, yeah.
So no matter how much you had in your bank, the most that you could get was 300 out.
And you heard stories about it, like guys who are going to the store, they were going to work, and they heard the news about the bank shutdown, and they had like 20 euros in their pocket. And that's all they had to live on for a month.
Yeah.
Except for the generosity of their friends and family, because no one had any money.
Right. So you can imagine if this lasts longer, if this were to go for a week, 2 weeks, or if it affected other banks besides Wells Fargo. Imagine a chaos.
So the official story is that they're not having liquidity problems. They're not insolvent.
Mm-hmm.
That it's just a technical glitch. Their computer systems are down.
Yeah, according to one of the news articles I saw, there was some kind of fire in one of their server locations. But you would think for a multi-billion-dollar company that they would still have backups that you can access your account.
Well, I mean, what was the airline that shut down like a couple of months ago?
Oh, yeah,
right? It was like Delta or something.
Yeah,
had
there's a
like
couple.
all their computer systems were down and they just couldn't fly any planes for like a couple days.
Yeah.
So this happens, right? Big
Right.
computer systems go down, and that's not surprising. But it does make you wonder and worry if it's your money that's at stake.
Yeah.
And so you would hope for a system that couldn't be shut down or might be like, I don't know, not dependent on a single server room, like decentralized maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We wouldn't know about any systems like that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not in cryptocurrency or anything like that. So sorry, that's sarcasm.
Yeah. So speaking of decentralization, that's why it's good to have Bitcoin. It's probably worth having more than one bank, just in case if you only use Wells Fargo, then you're kind of screwed. So maybe have a credit union or a different type of bank, just as a backup.
Well, that protects against one bank going down, like Wells Fargo having a computer glitch. If you also have like, some other bank.
Yeah.
But if you have a systemic collapse like what happened in Cyprus,
Yeah, then that's a different story.
that's you're not protected there. If the whole like 2008 financial crisis happens again or anything weird like that,
Yeah.
you better be not in dollars or in banks, but something else somewhere else.
Speaking of that, I remember reading another article. If you had $1 million and you were going to retire in Venezuela before the hyperinflation or this collapse, today that would only be worth $1.
Oh,
So that's a huge haircut.
oh man! Just because of the inflation of the currency.
Yeah, it's projected to be millions of percent of inflation.
Wow.
this year.
So not even keeping your dollars in multiple banks or and having some cash on hand, but also not even dollars, but some other currency just
to hedge.
protect against the systemic risk of like the currency itself becoming insolvent.
Exactly.
So, yeah, hold your own keys and have crypto.
Yeah, diversify a bit.
Yeah, for safety's sake. Let's see. What's the next story on our list here? Local Bitcoins?
Local Bitcoins. So this is different. It looks like you have to do KYC, AML. I think the article said something about beginning 2020.
I think what they were saying is that the European Union has made a ruling that you have until 2020 to implement these new things.
Right.
But that because local Bitcoin is located in Finland,
yes,
Finland has a more aggressive timeline. So they will be doing it even sooner than 2020.
Oh, even sooner.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you're using local Bitcoins, you're going to have to upload your driver's license or somehow identify yourself.
Yeah, and that's just to get money or even trade, right?
Right, and it's not like you're trading with local Bitcoins. You're trading with another human being.
Yeah.
But then again, local Bitcoins has always been a little bit risky because what the law enforcement in this country loves to do is do sting operations.
Yeah.
Where they will go on local Bitcoins and pose as a buyer. I want to buy some crypto.
Right.
And when they meet you in person, they'll say, oh, yeah, I'm going to use this to buy drugs. And if you go through with the transaction because that's super illegal, you can't buy drugs.
Yeah.
Then they arrest you for assisting with drug trade.
Yeah, and then you go down that way also.
Yeah, we actually know someone personally who was put in jail for that very same thing.
Right on.
Yeah, he used to be an intern for our company, and now he's locked up.
Right.
I mean, this shouldn't be the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't think that this is a just system, but this is the system that we live in right now. And so within that system, you have to be smart and clever and not break the law, but find legal ways to express your freedom.
Right. At least slowly until it changes. I mean, look at the marijuana industry, how it changed. Becoming
Right.
legal. It started with one state, just like paying taxes in Bitcoin. What was it, Ohio or something, where you can pay your taxes in Bitcoin. It starts with one state and it just slowly grows from there until
it becomes a movement. Right.
Yeah.
So we don't advocate breaking the law, but we do advocate changing the law to make it more just so that you're not put in jail for doing transactions with ordinary people.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. WikiLeaks reveals that U.S. government uses banks as weapons.
So this is not really surprising to me.
Yeah, nothing new here.
Yeah, and actually the document itself was leaked in 2008, I think.
Okay, so it's older.
It's a document from the U.S. Army, I think. It's talking about unconventional warfare, and it's saying that in a time of war, or even just in time of peace, but still you want to put some pressure on somebody.
Right.
That one way to do that, besides having military bases and army people on the ground with tanks or whatever, is to cut off their banking relationships.
Yeah, that's the start of it. You go for the economic first before real bloodshed begins.
Right, trade sanctions and all that sort of thing. And so they're talking about using the World Bank as one of their puppets to accomplish that. And is the World Bank supposed to be independent of U.S. policy? Yes. In practice, maybe not so much.
It's still influenced.
At least according to this document, that's very much influenced. So not only do nations decide who you can and cannot do peaceful exchange with, but they also say what nations you can and cannot do exchange with.
And just like in Venezuela, they're trying to withdraw like $1.2 billion or something along those lines in gold that the UK has, and they're not giving it to Maduro. So it's not really, like your money. You don't hold your keys.
Yeah, if you have gold bars, that's a great idea. That's not dollars, right?
Right.
I think crypto may be a better investment than gold bars, but if you have it, it's still a good thing.
Yeah.
But if you then take those gold bars and put them in someone else's vault,
right,
you don't have the money that you think you have, and so you're just trusting that other person.
Yeah.
And it's the same as putting your cryptocurrency on an exchange. It's like you're trusting someone to not run away with it. So yeah, your own keys also applies to physical currencies.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
So that brings us to our next story.
Yeah, so updates to Quadriga. So Quadriga was one of Canada's biggest, I think the biggest exchange in Canada. So recently, last week, reported that there was like $190 million that went missing, and the CEO supposedly died in India. But now it's looking more like that he faked his own death right?
Well, it's not clear that he faked his own death. Last week we covered this story. There was a CEO who had the keys to all the exchange's money, and he died.
Yes.
But we didn't know in the story last week that we talked about, did it say how he died? We didn't dig into that.
Yeah.
Turns out the news is that he actually died in India while building an orphanage.
Yes.
That may have been true, but it turns out there's also places in India where you can just buy death certificates.
Yep.
So would it have been too hard for him to go to India, set up this thing, buy a death certificate, claim that he's dead, and then have the money and run away with it?
Right. And it's also weird that Quadriga didn't report it, immediately. I think they waited like a couple of weeks before announcing it.
Maybe they thought they could squeak by.
Yeah.
There's also some concern. I saw one conspiracy that someone thought they identified the Litecoin address that belonged to Quadriga.
Yeah.
Like where all the Quadriga Litecoin was.
Yeah, I heard about like something started to move, right?
And the coins are moving.
Yeah.
So if he's dead and the keys are gone, then how are the coins moving? Unless it's not the address. Like it's all conspiracy theory, like conjecture stuff. But still, it's kind of suspicious.
There was another article. I don't have it pulled up here, but also something about that he had a will with over like 140 million for his supposed wife also. So it's new stuff. So
interesting.
Need to dig in.
So bottom line is we're not here to judge or to know what the truth is, because who can say in a case like this, but it does look more and more suspicious, like, yeah, maybe this is all a setup and he ran away with $180 million.
And here's another thing to bring up. Quadriga, they follow, the KYC, AML laws, like know your customer. And that still didn't prevent or save customers from their funds.
Right, right.
So it doesn't always guarantee that it's an exchange that's KYC, AML. It's a safe, regulated exchange. It can still happen where you lose your funds.
Right, right. Yeah, the KYC doesn't actually protect you from the exchange. What it does is it's one more way of the government saying who can and cannot trade with whoever. Sorry, I'm not such a negative rant here. It's just like we have one bad story after another.
Like today's like a negative day.
But that actually brings up a question. If there was $180 million on the line, would you run away with it?
No.
No.
No, would you?
No. I mean, on the one hand, you could see like that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Like you can get a nice yacht and have a cool lifestyle.
Buy your own island.
But at the same time, it's like, how could you live with yourself? Like, would you have a good lifestyle?
Right.
If you're on the run from the law enforcement, everyone's out to get you. Like,
and there's like bounty hunters looking for you.
Yeah, like I don't know if I would want to live that life in exchange for that much money.
Yeah, because you always got to be looking behind your back.
You couldn't never talk to your family again.
Right. Faking your death and you can't get in contact with your old friends and family.
Yeah, it just seems really awful. I mean, I don't care how much money you have. I don't think that's worth it.
Yeah, not at all.
No, it's just very strange. But apparently people think that's a good idea.
To each their own.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, a little different kind of news. So Twitter CEO, so he's stated he's really for Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, BTC.
Yeah, and also Lightning, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so this is actually interesting. Twitter is a pretty big social network.
Yeah.
And he's the CEO, and he's super into Bitcoin.
Right.
So that could be good, right?
Yeah.
That means that Twitter could be positive towards Bitcoin. It could also be bad if they decide to use their pro-Bitcoin stance as like an anti-altcoin stance.
Right.
So it could be either really good or really bad depending on how they use that power.
Yeah.
He has Square. He's also the CEO or investor in Square, I think.
Right.
Is that correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
It rings a bell.
And Square also allows you to do Bitcoin for commerce. So that's good. I'm super in favor of anything that lets people use Bitcoin
or cryptocurrency
in general for more commerce.
Right.
And if he's doing that and he's promoting that and he makes that possible, I mean, could we see on Twitter payments perhaps?
Yeah, like the tips or maybe Lightning channels or Lightning payments. That would be great.
Yeah. So this is good. I think it's positive, but it really depends. Is he doing it in an open way where he supports all crypto, or is he doing it in more of an exclusive way like Bitcoin only and everything else must die?
Right.
He does have also, besides Square, an investment in Lightning Labs.
Yeah, so he's obviously into Lightning.
Obviously into the Lightning Network, yeah. This is very interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but...
Well, one thing to make out of it is at least... It looks like they're trying to adapt then. Yeah, because if you don't adapt, you'll be like Blockbuster, then die and, lose to Netflix.
Yep.
So good on them.
Well, another positive, I guess this is positive news, is that the ETF commissioner
Yeah.
has said something to the effect that eventually I do think someone will satisfy the standards and they will have a Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah. Try so many times over over the duration of so much time. It has to get approved eventually. I remember gold ETFs. There was the same thing. It got rejected a lot initially, and then eventually there was a gold ETF. It wasn't that easy.
Right.
They didn't get it right the first time.
Well, we should probably talk about what an ETF is.
Yeah.
So an ETF is a stock, basically.
Yeah.
So I can buy Apple stock, I can buy Google stock.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a stock in a company whose only purpose is to hold something else.
Yeah, to hold those Bitcoins
So
in this case.
Bitcoin ETF would be a company that when you buy their stock, they take the money that you spent on buying their stock and they go out and they buy an equal amount of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So that stock now represents Bitcoin and is tied to the price of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
if Bitcoin goes
it's
up,
backed by
the
Bitcoin.
stock goes up, and if the price goes down, the stock. So that means stock market people, like ordinary people with E-Trade accounts, can suddenly buy Bitcoin
Mm-hmm.
without having to set up a wallet or set up a Bitcoin exchange or do anything weird like that.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So people who aren't into the technical parts of having a wallet, safeguarding the keys and whatnot, like William said, you can just trade on the normal trading sites. Like buy some of the stocks, sell, etc.
So I would say one thing, that this is actually good for the price of Bitcoin, because
Mm-hmm.
if you can buy Bitcoin on an exchange like a stock market, that's going to increase the price because more people buying.
Right.
It's not necessarily good for Bitcoin itself,
Mm-hmm.
because the goal of Bitcoin isn't to have a high price.
Right.
I think the goal of Bitcoin is to be useful as a medium of exchange,
Medium
like
of
a
exchange as
currency.
a currency.
If it's a cryptocurrency, right?
Yes.
You should be able to hold it, and when something weird happens, like what happened to Wells Fargo, you can pull it out
Yeah,
and use
still
it to
spend.
live your life. And the
Mhm.
more ways that you have to get in and out and to spend and to use, that's what we're looking for.
Right.
And so having a higher price is nice, but it's not really what gets me excited about this technology.
Yeah. More for the decentralization, giving people more power to control their money,
Right.
essentially.
On the other hand, looks like they're being very cautious. I think their concern is that so far, out of the 10 proposals they've looked at,
Mhm.
none of them have really satisfied all their requirements in terms
Yeah.
of being safe and secure and everything.
Do you know off the top of your head what is the main one that they're really looking for to get approved?
There's
like a whole list, I'm
that-
sure.
In this article, they mentioned that there were 10 proposals, including the Winklevoss's proposal and a bunch of others. The commissioner said that the Winklevoss didn't stand out as being particularly solid.
Okay.
So who knows which one he's talking about when he's saying that one of them's getting close.
Right.
But the idea is that at some point, one of them is going to solve all the problems and be stable enough.
Yeah, eventually.
Because because the problem with an ETF is if I'm buying shares in this ETF,
Mhm.
what's assuring that they're going to go out and buy Bitcoin?
Yeah.
And who's holding this Bitcoin?
Yeah,
Where is it being
make sure
secured?
it's being bought, right.
And what's all making this be honest? Because if I say, oh yeah, I'm a Bitcoin ETF and I don't actually have Bitcoin,
Yeah.
that's a fraud.
Right.
So that's why the SEC has to be involved in this, because it is trust-based.
So if the ETF does, let's just say the ETF does get approved one day, would that also open up doors for people and, like say pensions, like the firefighters fund or teachers, they would be able to, they want to get a cut,
Oh, yeah.
their portfolio into Bitcoin
Oh yeah,
for their retirement portfolio.
that really opens up the door to a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Because all those retirement funds and things, they have to invest a certain amount of money in assets in order to have, return when they have all their people retire.
Right. So there's more potential.
So pension funds have billions and billions of dollars that they need to find places to put.
Yeah, and even if they just wanted to allocate, say, 1% of pension funds into cryptocurrencies,
That would be enough
could
to
set it off.
significantly move the markets.
Right.
Yeah. So this could be really big. This could be the next bull run. This could take Bitcoin to $100,000 if something like this went off.
Right.
Assuming that the ETF is actually honest and that when someone buys the ETF, that money is actually going into Bitcoin and not just sitting there in the ETF
Right.
itself.
And hopefully the ones with the keys to the actual Bitcoins for that ETF
Right, and then
doesn't die or lose their keys.
Exactly. There's a lot of trust that goes into something like this, and
Yeah.
that's why the SEC is being so cautious.
They really have to have a good system that's really well thought out.
Yeah, that's why we don't. I mean, that's why I'm kind of like, an ETF, because I would rather not trust and just hold my own coins on my own keys.
Yeah. So you don't, like if someone loses his keys, then the whole that part of the group population, they get screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than just one individual if they lost their, their credentials.
Right.
It's just one.
So that's why it's like, yeah, it's nice. I'm happy. Like bull run, bring it on. Let's bring the price up,
Yeah.
and more price can bring more adoption.
But then if the price goes up again, that drastically, we might see higher fees again, similar to last year, even with the SegWit. Because right now, another article says we have the same amount of transaction volume as last year when we had, when it was $20,000 a Bitcoin, but the fees are still relatively low today.
Right.
Because more exchanges started utilizing SegWit or batch transactions, so that's why it's still low.
Right.
But
so that's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Bitcoin BTC has 1 megabyte blocks. That means that Bitcoin BTC can do, depending on whether you're using SegWit or how many inputs and outputs, 3 to 7 transactions per second.
Right.
So if you get a whole bunch of new people on board who want to now use Bitcoin, or even just transfer it between their exchanges or trade with it or whatever, that 3 to 7 transactions per second is going to fill up, and we're going to see what we saw last year, where or
$50
2 years ago,
fees.
$50 fees, right?
Yep.
$20 fees, and that's not going to be good for adoption.
Right.
But the good news is BTC no longer has to bear the brunt of the adoption. I think in the last cycle of this happening, that Edge was born, right? We actually launched Edge Wallet, and Airbits is no longer, that was BTC only. We no longer have Airbits. So now you can use Edge, you can have multiple coins, right? BitPay now has multiple coins.
Yes.
Coinbase, lots of places now have multiple coins. So if
even the ATMs.
So even if BTC becomes $20 fees, $50 fees, because it's the gateway in and out of the fiat money system, and it's the standard that everyone's using and all that sort of thing.
Right.
Fine. We'll just buy our lattes using, Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash.
We'll temporarily switch and then make our payments with a different crypto that has cheaper fees until that gets filled up, and then move on to another phone.
Right, and it's fine. I think we this is what they say when they say Bitcoin is anti-fragile. They mean anytime a problem happens, the system figures out how to work its way around that problem. But I don't think when people say that, they're not thinking like Bitcoin as a system is more than just Bitcoin BTC. It's actually the crypto space as a whole. And I think that's what we're seeing is the crypto space as a whole is anti-fragile, not necessarily just one coin.
Right on.
So. And maybe Lightning Network. If Jack Dorsey gets Lightning on Twitter and that's super reliable and fast and nice, then great, bring it on, right?
Yeah, then we might have to jump in.
Yeah. I mean, Edge Wallet is not opposed to Lightning.
Yeah.
I think our stance...
We adapt.
Well, I think right now Lightning is not something that's on our roadmap because it's as much work to add Lightning to our wallet as it would be to add a whole other coin, because we got to understand invoices, we got to talk to the new P2P network, we've got to do all this crazy stuff that we don't have to do for regular Bitcoin. So it's like adding a whole other coin worth of technology.
Right. So way harder than, say, Monero.
Or adding EOS or Mimblewimble or something else like that, right? So if we have the engineering resources, what are we going to choose? Are we going to choose to add another coin that people are going to swap and it's going to make us revenue, or are we going to add Lightning?
Yeah.
And so far, the answer has always been add more coins, because we like, to have more flexibility and more revenue. But if Lightning becomes like the thing that everybody uses for everything, then we'll have to add it, because that makes us a viable product.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's not like we're opposed to it. It's just, it's not a meaningful business decision right now to jump on it.
In terms of, a business decision. See here.
Well, we've got a question from a user. Skoogum on Periscope asks, what about the impact of the futures market?
Yeah, how would that impact it if there was an ETF? Or say the price of Bitcoin is really high. How would that impact the futures market? Would that make it more higher, or?
So I think last year, was it the Commodities Exchange out of Chicago added, or was it last year, a futures contract for Bitcoin?
Right.
So what that meant is that maybe not people buying and trading stocks on like E-Trade, but commodities traders could now get involved in Bitcoin in the same kind of way you would with an ETF, where it's like a virtual investment in the funds themselves are held elsewhere.
Right.
Actually, a futures is even more different than that, because when a future, you have
it's a contract to pay at a certain price.
At a certain date, right?
At a certain date,
so there's actually... The commodities exchange, unlike an ETF, doesn't even have to hold the funds.
Yeah.
Because you have someone who's willing to buy and someone who's willing to sell, and they meet up and they form this contract.
Right.
That sets a future price at a future date.
Yeah.
And so if you think the price is going to go up, then you would go buy at a lower price in the future, so that way you can sell it on the difference and make a profit. And if you think the price is going to go down, you go sell it, and then so you can trade on what you think is going to happen.
Right, and also to protect from volatility in general.
Right.
Yeah.
If I know I'm going to need 1 Bitcoin next month, I can buy it at today's price, and then when the next month comes around, I'm locked in, and I don't.
Yeah, you're locked in. You don't have to worry if it goes
up
too
or
high.
down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's some benefit there. I don't think the futures market has as much vastness as the ETF market.
Right.
In terms of the amount of money that can come in.
I think the only positive impact it would have then would be at least it opens the doors for these type of traders. Just more knowledge about Bitcoin, more use cases for these traders that are in futures.
Right.
I'm not sure on the price.
The other problem with futures is it can cut both ways.
Yeah.
Because what can happen with the futures contract? Well, if a bunch of people say the price is going to go down, then they all short.
Yeah.
And that can actually lower the price of Bitcoin.
Right, because it might use that as
because you're putting that downward pressure, and then people can arbitrage that on the exchanges, and then that's going to bring the whole price down everywhere.
Yeah, it just follows.
So
it could follow.
So when you have futures, it's not necessarily going to be positive for the price.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with an ETF, ETFs don't do shorting; they only invest in the thing itself. So I think it can only be positive.
Yeah.
So the ETF might actually be better for the price than the futures thing that happened last couple of years ago, whatever it was. I don't remember when they added it exactly.
Right.
Let's see. Any other user questions? Nope. We always love getting your questions. So if you have anything to ask us, we're live every week.
Yeah.
And if you think of something, please, hop into our channels, our social medias, and ask us during our podcast. We'd love to talk.
Yeah, we're here every Friday at 12.
We have one more story in our story list.
Kind of related to...
related to price, actually. Yeah. It's a leaked document that explains why the price fell in 2018. The price of Bitcoin fell in 2018.
Yeah, so it looks like they were really selling the coins.
So, a little bit of history. Mt. Gox was an exchange that had $500 million of Bitcoin in it.
Yeah, looks like 850,000.
A lot of Bitcoin.
Yeah, lots of Bitcoin.
And the money evaporated. It disappeared. We don't have the money anymore. Was the big scary story back in, was it 2014?
End of 2013.
End of 2013.
End of 2014. I don't remember. It was a while back.
Beginning 2014, something like that. And after that giant fiasco, they were such a big exchange. They were the biggest exchange.
Yeah.
The price of Bitcoin tanked from $1,000 at the peak down to like $200. That was a pretty vast drop in value.
More than 80%.
Yeah, like 1/5 the value. And that was a pretty rough, dark time. And then we, of course, had the nice raise up from 200 or whatever it was at the bottom back to 20,000, which is very nice.
And it was slowly creeping up before it spiked up.
Yeah, so that was nice. We kind of recovered from that. But it looks like what happened is the trustees who were given what was left of Mt. Gox, all the shambles of the exchange, there was still some money left in it.
Yes.
So they started selling those Bitcoins for
the customers with
dollars
claims,
or yuan or whatever, because it's Japanese, so it's probably yen.
Yes.
So they started selling those coins. And apparently they were doing it on an exchange, therefore driving the price of Bitcoin down, 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 which could explain why the price crashed in 2018.
Yeah, and it looks like it was with, I guess, a BitPoint exchange.
Bitpointo.
Yeah. Yeah, 25 large sale orders. Right.
So I don't know if this is true or not.
Yeah, just
and how much of an impact it would have.
Right, but another thing to consider. At least.
So was it the one actor driving the price down, or was it them driving the price down and everybody was already kind of oversaturated, so the whole market was willing to go down because it was already overbought?
Yeah, I think it's this plus a combination of everything else.
I think 2018 or 2017 was a very hectic, frantic, everybody's thinking the moon's going to be forever, and it was ready for a correction anyway. So this could have been the catalyst, maybe not the sole reason that it fell.
Right.
Selling that many Bitcoins, $500 million on an exchange,
will have an impact.
That's going to have an impact on the price. So assuming this is true, assuming this story is correct, that could be your problem right there.
Right.
Well, actually, no, they only sold 300 million at those prices because the exchange had $500 million. A bunch of it was lost in the 300 million
And another history. Do you remember what Mount Gox was really, what it stood for?
So it was from such an early point in time in Bitcoin's history that it wasn't even a Bitcoin exchange. It was Magic the Gathering for doing trading cards.
Yeah, trading cards.
Magic the Gathering, the game.
Yeah.
And someone took it and turned it into a Bitcoin exchange. This was way back in the early day. And it became the biggest exchange. And then, of course, they exploded, and now we have other exchanges.
And now we have other exchanges dying, doing similar things.
Coming and going.
Yeah. Okay, events. So it looks like we're in Atlanta, February 8th to the 10th.
That's now.
Yeah, that's now.
Paul's
there.
Paul's in Atlanta right now.
Yeah.
If you want to meet our CEO, he is somewhere on the show floor of TabConf.
Yeah. So
I love TabConf. They have the funniest tagline. It's like, open to everyone except ICO pitches. Like a blockchain conference of substance. It just really speaks to my heart. It's just like, we're here for the real business, not for like...
Yeah, no fake coins.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So it looks like our time is up. We'll be seeing you guys next Friday at 12. Again, if you have any questions, reach out to us at info@edge.app, or if you have any support questions, support@edge.app.
And you'll be one of the main people answering those questions.
Yep. I'll look forward to talking to you guys if you have questions.
All right.
All right. Signing off.